Most things that happen to us are on you. So I'm not going to disagree with you. I just think it's assumed at this point.
Yeah, fair enough.
Also, I learned how to title this. What? Why is it not titled? Is it titled?
It says, "Welcome to our live show."
All right. Well, you know what? Forget everyone in the world.
And go ahead.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Soccer Wise. David Goss, and I am not alone for this show like I was yesterday for the weekend recap. So I got the man, the myth, the legend, Tommy Scoops in the house with me. Tom, I did an Austin FC podcast last night. They called me Tom in the middle of the show, but it was podcast only, so no one could see the mustache. So no one knew that it wasn't actually you because we are two peas in a pod.
We are two peas in a pod, Dave, and that's where you're starting. I agree. A lot of synergy. So much so that I know the rundowns before you send me it. We don't even need research. We just know what's going on.
So for everyone out there, you now know we've researched zero this show, and everything is fired from the hip and fired from the pocket. I've got extra pockets in my shorts. My New York Liberty shorts.
Cargo shorts?
Liberty are back. Shorts. Dominated Las Vegas. You are all welcome. Bow at the feet of New York basketball. The greatest place in the world. I think I'm going to the game on Thursday as well, where we do the double over Dallas this week, because that's the way things are right now. But we have a lot to talk about because the Leagues Cup is so exciting. The biggest competition in the history of the world reaches its semifinal point. We are going to go through everything that happened in the quarterfinals, talk semifinal previews, and then dig into some news as well. Tom, post transfer window close. How do you feel? Like, are you itching to send 750 tweets about Jose Martinez? Or does it feel good to not have as much?
It feels good. I'm not going to lie. I'm still perpetually in my head, it feels like there's so much going on. I was able to mostly do nothing all weekend. This is my fiance's birthday. That was nice. Had a lot of fun. Wasn't on my phone much. Then shout out Grandma. Grandma's birthday. 95 years young on Sunday.
Whoa.
And then even Monday, I was like, oh, dude, I've just done so much lately. And then I'm like, it's okay to be done to not go full tilt today. And I was like, what are you talking about? You haven't done anything for 3 days. Like, how long is this excuse going to last? Get back on the horse and tweet about John Token. And so that's what I did.
That's what you did. I appreciate it. If you haven't read it, go to Give Me Sport and read the breakdown of the FC Cincinnati window as well. That was really good. I really enjoyed that one because now you get that chance to breathe, and rather than just news, we get a little bit of the why, when, how of the whole thing. I want to ask why, when, how. How many Miller Lights for Grandma?
95 probably for her birthday.
Just to celebrate every single year. That's a way to celebrate for sure. I appreciate that.
Actually got her a Miller Lite cake. That's what it was. It was just Miller. No. Oh, I can't plan that far in advance.
The problem is I only think you're half kidding. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if the cake existed. I went down to the water this morning because beautiful day. As you said, why not treat ourselves? I went down to the water and a Michelob Ultra ferry went by me.
Did you leave immediately?
I was going to send you a picture and tell you that we have to get in the boats and storm the ferry routes as we go forward. So yeah. I am glad we are back. I am excited. I thought for the weekend, by the way, for watching, obviously you had Premier League kickoff, La Liga, Serie A, a whole bunch of soccer on the men's side across the world. But having 4 Leagues Cup games was very doable. Guess what?
Yes.
I watched 4 Leagues Cup games, and I watched all of them, and I watched the teams play soccer, and I learned things about how the teams play soccer. It's not bad when games are not 100 at the same time. I don't hate that.
Dude, low-key, I was thinking just in general, I was like, this is so nice. I was like, is this what it was like when MLS had, 22 teams or whatever, right? And the games weren't all at the same time. I was like, wow, I feel like I do pretty good at watching a lot of different teams, but just when all of the games run at the same time, it's a little bit difficult. I was like, this is nice. I feel like I have a handle on every single one of these games and everything that happened, and I don't feel like I'm just reacting and trying to, oh my god, wait, was there a goal over there? Let me switch to that one. Oh, quiz, what did you watch 3 games ago? Name me one pass that happened.
Yeah.
There's too many games going on. I don't remember who was playing for who. A lot of these teams are wearing white and black. Which game is this?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really nice. I like just watching pretty much a game at a time. There was a little overlap, but that was okay.
And it helps when the stakes are pretty high, right? It helps when it's knockout situation. And so you're jumping from thing to thing, but there's not like, that game's over. That game doesn't matter, except for Seattle for the second half of that one because they chose to take themselves out. Shout out to everyone watching live. Jump into the chat on YouTube, on Twitch, or on Twitter, and we will get to some of your stuff. RG Lost shouted out Moontown. That was the Austin FC podcast I was on yesterday, so if you want to go listen to that one, please jump in. They do a great job covering Austin FC. And Dan Nye said broke his ankle playing soccer last week, but happy to be watching us. So best in recovery there. We will continue as we put you on the season-ending injury list, and we work through some rumors and reports to replace you. We will continue to have Tom update on your status.
Look at us talking through, like, are we going to get a story from David Goss about Men's League at the end of the show about, and then the guy got carried off holding his ankle, and I don't know what happened to him?
I actually had to play goalkeeper in the second half of my most recent game, so didn't get the opportunity to put in any damage like that.
No, that's what you can. If there's any 50-50, the keeper's not getting, like, you could be as reckless as you want.
I was in danger. I had to put both my fists through the back of that player's head and come down with my cleats on their thigh because I was in an exposed position. That would be how I would explain things, for sure. The transfer window is open for my men's league team, by the way. So if anyone's a goalkeeper in the New York City area and looking to jump between the pipes, let me know, and I could potentially work on a trial for you coming forward. Let's dig into Leagues Cup. Let's get to it. So we've got Columbus against Philadelphia and LAFC against Colorado coming up in the semifinals. Tom, I got a bunch of questions about this. I did some of it in the mailbag yesterday. Big picture before we get into it. 4 MLS teams in the semifinals. That means the 3 CONCACAF Champions Cup spots will go to an MLS side, as well as, for the second straight year, or the second year ever, depends on the language people choose to use in different moments, a Liga MX team won't win this competition. How do you assess the whole tournament big picture? Do you think there will be big changes going forward?
Well, that's a good question. Again, it just depends on the people negotiating this. Do they want the business metrics, which was, let's be honest, the start of this tournament, right? MLS wanted, both leagues wanted more competition between each other, get that out of the way, but like MLS wanted the Liga MX fans that are in America to come to their stadiums and to go to these games. And Liga MX clubs wanted those fans to come to stadiums in America to tap into that market, the ones who aren't in Guadalajara for a Chivas game on a Saturday, right? Like, so if that's still the case, if they feel accomplished on the business side and happy on the business side, I don't see things changing, right? If they want to look at it from a purely sporting perspective, this is something that I wish all these decisions were driven by sporting rather than finances and business.
Tom loves sport. He's basically Australian.
It's like, if this isn't driven by sporting desires, then nothing's going to change. I think that there's room for both. Somebody made the suggestion of, like, could we break this into, you do the group stage at one point and then you do the knockout rounds later.
Yeah.
You run out of time in the calendar with all of these things. So I guess trying to sprint through it over a month is the best way to do it. But for these Mexican teams, like, even if you do get to be in one of your pods, like, you're still in Los Angeles and not in Mexico City, right? Like, so I feel for all of this, but just logistically, I don't know how it's going to change. And we're just going to have the same arguments in the winter of, CONCACAF Champions Cup, MLS teams are in preseason, it's not fair. Then we get to the summer, Leagues Cup, the Mexican teams are traveling the whole time, it's not fair, right? Like, I feel like we're going to be in this perpetual debate where both sides are right, but both sides are wrong.
I agree with you. That's sort of what I said yesterday, which was similar, except obviously I don't see the numbers, so I don't know. I don't know how good the business side was this year. Like, we're not seeing huge crowds at stadiums. Club America obviously selling tickets, Tigres selling tickets, but is Necaxa selling tickets in San Jose? Is Mazatlan selling tickets in Philadelphia? And if that's not the case, then what's the opening or what's the opportunity? I've talked a couple times about, do you have earlier single elimination play-in games that can happen so that a Club America can stay in Mexico for an extra week or two while that happens and then travel to California, Tigres as well, right? Where you've then it's not that you're playing at home, but you limit your travel and your time on the road because of the separate knockouts. I also wonder in the scenario you're talking about of then splitting group stage and finals and knockouts, can you throw those games on the back end of the seasons? Because then you would have, in theory, two leagues that finish pretty much at the same time in the fall, because Mexico has a split season. So if you did a semis and a final, or a quarter, semis and finals in December, could you split those and put those in Mexico?
Sorry to just undercut you immediately, but like I'm fairly certain right now MLS Cup to the opening day of preseason is the minimum players union collective bargaining agreement days. Like I don't think so. Then you run the risk of, what if it's the Columbus Crew in MLS Cup and they're supposed to be playing in league that you physically can't. Right. So I don't think that can even be an option unless you move up to the final.
Well, in this setting, your Leagues Cup break would be shorter in the summer, so you can move back the start of the season, because you wouldn't need the 2 extra weeks you've taken off for Leagues Cup, and you throw those at the backside. But I get your point. Although one of the big complaints from MLS teams is the offseason's too long. That's like always a complaint from every coach, every executive, and a lot of
teams,
and a lot of for sure, and a lot of players who come here not from the U.S. And Canada, where they're used to a European or South American offseason, which is really short in between. If you did a setup like that, then maybe you could put a couple of the games in Mexico, because you've got time to sell them, and they're such high-profile games that you're not giving up 18 games of revenue from the U.S. You're giving up 2 games in which everyone should watch anyway, because it's a semi and a final or a quarterfinal. You know, if Club America plays at home at the Estadio Azteca in a quarterfinal against Colorado, they're going to do the same number they're going to do here in terms of TV numbers, and you'd assume the revenue would be close, because Dignity Health Park only holds 24 or 25,000 compared to the Azteca. So maybe that is a way where you can get a little bit of even ground back in terms of the setup or the competition, or cash rules everything around me and no one cares. And if cream is the lifestyle, then I respect it, and you got to move on from there and keep going forward. Let's talk about these games. Let's start with Columbus. Shootout victory 4-3 over NYCFC after a 1-1 draw. Alonso Martinez scored 14 seconds into this game. Rudy Camacho hanging out on the ball. And then Nancy, you see him the moment Camacho turns it over and Alonso goes in and scores. They cut to Nancy on the sideline. He's just laughing. It's funny, Tom. It doesn't matter. Oh, you're going to score first against us? Why would you do that to yourself? He doesn't care.
That was the most badass moment, I think, of the entire game, even more than some of the wonderful PKs and Cucho's goal, which was excellent. The fact of Wilfred Nazi's team going down 1-0, 14 seconds in, and he's just manically laughing on the sideline. I'd be like, oh, if I was at NYCFC, I'd be like, oh my God, we're going to lose 5-1. Right. Are you kidding me? Why is he worried?
NYCFC does the thing that happens every once in a while when like something weird off the field, where they like tell them to score then. The kickoff happens and they're like, no, dribble forward. Nonce, we didn't mean it. It was a joke. We're going to play even from here on out. He and you see it in the game, right? That moment happens and nothing changes. They're going to play the way they're going to play. They've got pure belief in the way they're going to play. They've got so much freedom to do what they do. NYCFC was super dangerous in this game against Columbus, but I would say on the run of play, Columbus should have won and probably deserved to win in the shootout with the chances they created over the course of the 90 minutes.
Yeah, and now this is in 2 years. Wilfred Nazi at lower.com field. In 41 games, they have lost 2 times. 27 wins, 12 draws, and 2 losses. The 12 draws includes this game because it went to PKs, and that's officially a draw. But like I remember talking to folks around the club before MLS Cup last year, and they were respectful. Like they're like, we're not overlooking LAFC. Right? It's just like we have this confidence, this like borderline. We know like a fact, if we're playing here, we're going to win. It's like that's how we feel about going to these games. Again, it's not disrespect. It's not overlooking opponents. It's just like we're great at what we do. And when we do it at home, like a lot has to go wrong for us to not win. And like, I think that's what you felt in this game. I think, as you said, NYCFC played well. They were dangerous. They created some moments, particularly the broadcast did a good job of picking up on this. Kind of the spacing between Nagbe and Zawadzki, they were able to pull them apart and have people dropping into pockets, whether it was in front of the back line or one central midfielder goes and then Maxi Morales pops up in the space somewhere else. Like, they did really good at that. And guess what? At the end of the game, it didn't matter because Cucho Hernandez scores a snap header running away from goal from 14 yards out. You think about all the things you need to worry about with this attack. Cucho Hernandez scoring a header from 14 yards out isn't at the top of your worry list, and still that's how they do it. It's like what makes them so dangerous is how many different ways they can hurt you and how many ways they do hurt you. And it just this feeling of inevitability when you play the Columbus Crew at Lower.com field.
Yeah, the game after the goal, for a lot of the stretch of the next segment of time, it was Christian Ramirez and Diego Rossi in the right half space creating danger. And then it's Max Arfstein all of a sudden for the next 20 minutes terrorizing you down the left side and Cucho dropping in to connect with him. But then Rossi making the run further along above him. And then Cucho's the one who goes and scores after Arfstein swaps wings to recycle a set piece. Like you said, it's constant. It's always dangerous. Arfstein scored one of the nicest goals you'll see, but didn't count because of an offside. That's a guy who is starting ahead of Dwan Jones, who they just traded for and have the ability to play. And Oddmanson, who they re-signed to an extended contract, who helped create the goal in MLS Cup in the victory over LAFC. This team is dangerous. They're really, really good. They're healthy right now, which is key. I think the little bit of the layoff for them not playing the group stage has helped them where you thought it might hurt teams because you'll lose momentum. But the 11 they can put out there every single time. And they look super comfortable in what they're doing and super dangerous. And just like Cucho scores, he goes to the corner. The atmosphere is great. The building is nice. It is just a wild world from where they were. And we talked about this a lot All-Star Week because we were with Columbus fans. They just sold out their season ticket allotment for 2025. They only sell 80% of the stadium to season tickets so they could do the other 20. This was a team that was told like, oh, there's no market here. Yeah. And they built a new building. They've got a Premier League center forward. And they have just come off an MLS Cup, and they might be on the verge of hosting their second final in, an 8-month span. And then you've got Campeones Cup coming up still and all of that. So it was a really cool moment. I thought this was a really high-level game. I said on the show yesterday. It was two teams that both have an idea of who they are. Where do we stand with NYCFC before we let them go? Because this weekend, MLS regular season is back. So we'll talk about a lot of this on Thursday. But for NYCFC, it's been an up and down year. They made a legitimate run in this one. You get knocked out in the shootout. You're on the verge of a semifinal. How do you feel about this club right now?
I feel good. I think I don't feel any different than I did probably before the Leagues Cup, where I don't think that I know that they're not in that top tier contenders. Again, the Columbus, Cincy, Miami, just these, and like I might be ready to move them slightly behind Charlotte, right? Like I think they're in the tier with Charlotte and the Red Bulls, so like they're a strong team, a solid team that has the ability to be very good. But if the Crew throw their fastball and NYCFC throw their fastball, the Crew wins 8 or 9 times out of 10, and I feel that way about the other top 3 teams as well. Like when they were up 2-0 against FC Cincinnati. Maybe we felt a little stronger, but like you just kind of look at this run. Like again, this got to penalties, so they could have won. And again, they played fine. Like they could have gotten a result there. They beat Tigres at Red Bull Arena. It took them penalties to beat New England. They coughed up the 2-0 lead to lose 4-2 at Cincy. They beat Querétaro in penalties. Like this feels about right for a team that's above average in MLS, but not one of the trophy contenders. Like I think that they're going to be difficult in the playoffs, but it's again they're in that second tier.
In a 3-game series, and I don't know who has home field advantage, if they throw their fastball and the Red Bulls throw theirs, who would you take?
Oh, it's a great question. I go back and forth on this all the time. I think that they're so similar. And I would used to put it as like Emil Forsberg, one thing, all things are equal. I'll just screw it. I'll take the team with the best player. Like Santi Rodriguez is up there, and the way Maxi Morales is playing, dude, like my God, it's such a joy to watch this man still play. So I think I'd swing back to NYCFC, but I really think that's like 50-50.
I agree. I think if Forsberg's fully healthy and back and integrated with Lewis Morgan and all of that, I'd probably lean Red Bulls. And I've loved watching Maxi Morales come back and be a part of this. One of my fears, though, is they are dependent on him. It is not like, oh, what we get from Maxi is a nice bonus.
Yes.
There are 2 teams, and when they throw their best fastball, that is only with Maxi Morales in the team. He is 37 years old. He is coming off a couple injuries. He obviously can't score penalties as well, which is not a problem. That doesn't matter. That's like the one case scenario that happens.
Hey, well, in the round 1 best of 3, maybe it does
True,
that.
that is absolutely true. But it just feels like they are overly reliant on him. They never replaced him. Then they bring him back, and then they're at their best. And I would like to see this be a team that can play stronger without him. But this was, again, another really strong performance. And you look at a lot of the pieces. They have a good shape defensively. They have a good idea of how they want to play. The midfield is one of the strongest in the league. If they can get finishing, they can be really, really dangerous going forward. So NYCFC knocked out. Columbus move on. And as you said, they don't lose at home. And they will host Philadelphia. Philadelphia coming off their own penalty kick shootout win, a 4-3 win over Mazatlan at home. 1-1 in regular time. Tyberibo picks up the red card towards the end of the first half. It was originally a straight red off the back of a second yellow, and then it becomes a double yellow card with the review and everything. Tom, were you seething inside of yourself during this entire sequence? I can feel it.
It's infuriating, man. Like, again, like it's difficult in the run of play. Like, you want to be able to say, like, oh, I can't believe the referee missed that. And I try to be super, like, whatever, man. Refereeing doesn't matter. You get some wrong. It is what it is. Yo, the fact that they went to VAR and the outcome was still that he was getting a red card, if you stopped rewarding this behavior, the behavior would stop or it would cease to impact the game. Every time you still go to VAR and let those two air quote yellows result in a player getting ejected, you encourage this behavior. It is infuriating to me. This could be stamped out pretty easily, pretty quickly. Or the players and teams that didn't adapt or didn't get better at it somehow would be left behind. If you wanted this out of the game, which most fans would agree, this does not help with the watchability or entertainment of the game.
No.
You try to make the game better and more enjoyable, you could get this out of the game. But instead, we still do stupid things like this and give Tyberibo a red card for next to nothing. Like, give me a break, dude.
And the offensive part of it, to me, is off the back of the first one, where it's like, we're all playing this game, the geopolitical game of a set piece, where it's like, you're going to fight, I'm going to talk to you, you're both going to look at each other and shake your head, then one of you is going to do it again. If it happens before the play, I'm going to blow the whistle. If it doesn't happen before the play, I'm going to let it go. Then it happens after the play, so I gave a yellow card. So now you get your freedom to do it again for the next 10 to 15 minutes before I bring you over to talk. So to give the red card on the second one as a straight red card at first is like ignoring your own refereeing of saying, like, I just spoke to them about this and it just happened. And if you think it's a genuine red card play, it's going to come up on VAR because that means you think he elbowed, punched, hit, whatever for the defender to go down in the way they did. And I think that part about it felt very laughable. And then they're already in it because you're on the red card and you watch it over and over. And it's like, well, there is contact. It's like, yeah, of course. It's a set piece. There is always contact on this play. It is all of the things, as you said, that we'd like to see out of the game. It's just a bunch of nonsense. It is like garbage defending put on like the highest platform of like, yeah, no, I'm just going to dive because I have zero idea how to track a defender or track an attacking player. And I have zero intention of watching the ball to go win a header. And so I'm just going to dive at some point. And you are defending that as the referee. But then you get Mikel Urad in the face. Then you get Jack McGlynn down the left-hand side. Jack McGlynn with what you would call a cultured ball down the left. English, translation, language, use whatever term, information on the pass. And Mikel Urad is, as we know, the elite goal scorer in the region. And he chips the goalkeeper from the end line, basically, after a full run. You got to love that.
I was screaming in my office, ball don't lie. Like, no rooting interest other than to root out the play acting for a red card. I was like, ball don't lie. That was perfect. Let's go.
Rasheed Wallace in one fell swoop in MLS. So Ura gets the goal. And then I would say in the second half, and I think I said this on the recap yesterday, Philadelphia were more dangerous for most of that second half. Most of that came from set pieces. But when they got set pieces, they held it in the attacking third for large segments of time, and they were not overloaded by Mazatlan throughout this game. The goal comes 12 or 13 minutes into the second half, and I would say Philadelphia played fairly even from that point on. They made late changes to like hold it down, bringing Lowe in as a third center back and all of that. But like Philadelphia looked like themselves in this game. They looked like a bend but don't break team. Andre Blake looks back, which is a huge conversation because he is their MVP when they're at their best. And they looked like a group that knew that they would get through this. And that was the team we've seen in the past in big games be like, yep, you're going to do your thing. And we have the self-belief that we're going to be better than you at the end of this.
Yeah, vintage Philadelphia Union. Andre Blake obviously missed time, and they struggled really hard without him. Blake at the beginning of the year wasn't that good. Like, again, that seems super disrespectful to talk about Andre Blake like that. So he was clearly carrying an injury, but like when he was hurt, and it was correct, their margins weren't that bad. It was a lot of underperforming their expected goals against because they got awful goalkeeping play. And I was like, yeah, if you told me 2022 Andre Blake was coming back in from injury, then it'd be an immediate fix, and it still should be. But it was like, well, the last time we saw Blake a couple months ago, he wasn't that good. He's clearly 100% fit right now and 100% healthy. Contract's all taken care of. He was insane in this game, this entire run, the last few games. Like, Andre Blake is capital B back, and it just goes to show like how thin the margins can be even at this level, even with this team. That like if you're special in your box and special in the other box, which used to be Julian Carranza, but you have Mikhail Ur stepping up with that really nice goal, then like this team is always going to be really strong between the boxes, and they can be one of the best teams in the league, or they have shown in the past to be one of the best teams in the league when Andre Blake is playing at an elite level, and then they have somebody in the attack that's consistently playing at an elite level. Over the last 6 weeks, it's been Ty Baribo, and now Andre Blake is back, and all of a sudden they go from 11th place in the East to, oh man, they look like they're in that second tier contenders again.
I didn't notice this, and like I wouldn't be shocked if I'm reading something wrong, but I've been looking at XG numbers today and chance creation and all of this. Philly are the top chance creator in the East the whole season. So not only have they underperformed in goal, they've underperformed in front of goal at the same time in a way that's almost historic, that delta between the two. And so Baribo has started scoring goals. That's brought them back closer to where they should be off the chance creation they have. Gazdag has scored some goals as well. And then you add in Andre Blake returning. Obviously, Leagues Cup numbers different than regular season numbers, but like they have been there on both sides of the field. And if either of them were to click, they are probably back into the playoff conversation, and like no one wants to play them. If both of them click, they are, as you said, vintage Philadelphia Union. They will be that without Jose Martinez, but there was a cool moment in this game as Tom lays to rest one of the greats in Jose Martinez. Yesterday, I was asked one of our mailbag questions, which if you want to be a part of that, you can sign up to our Patreon. You can subscribe at a couple different levels. That gets you access to our Discord where we take our mailbags from. We have audio ones now that we use, and we got one from one of our followers named Captain Crunch in there where he asked, where does Jose Martinez rank as the poop stirrers in MLS history, the CONCACAF dark arts of all of it? So I talked through all of that, but Jose Martinez gets subbed on in this game, even though the Corinthians move is done and they should protect him. They basically subbed him on just to take a penalty. He takes the first shot, he scores, he goes over and embraces Andre Blake. They win the game. He did the drum thing as well. Yeah. It was a cool moment and a cool way for what is now, at this point, 4 years, a club legend for the Philadelphia Union.
He's absolutely a club legend. He's one of the my favorite MLS characters of the last 5 to 8 years. Like, it was from our first introduction to him. It was that LAFC game right before the pandemic, the 3-3 game, where he was on another level. And I'll get to that in a second. But like when I was like, all right, that dude's good. He seems pretty fun. When I knew that he was going to be a character that we were going to love, that he was going to be a neutral favorite, was at the MLS's back tournament, and because they had the mics on the field and there was nobody there because it was prime COVID, nobody's at these in the bubble, you could hear the benches clearly. And there's a moment where Jose was chasing an attacker, and you could hear Jim Curtin say 3 or 4 times, Jose, don't foul! Jose, don't foul! Jose, don't foul! And then the fouls and whistle, and you hear him just go, you bleep! Like, he just screams an expletive. And I was like, I love this. Because then Jose Martinez turned to put his hands up, and I was like, oh, this is my new favorite player. Yeah. But going back to that LAFC game, like, it was very quickly forgotten in 2020, let alone by now. Very quickly forgotten that 2018-2019, Harris Bandunian was the defensive mid for the Philadelphia Union. And 2018 was the year that Ernst Tanner arrived. He came in like, whatever it was, August or September. So he didn't have a transfer window yet. Like, whatever it was. And before he got there, the Union were playing possession. And Medunjanin, I had him as best 11 one of those years for my vote. I forget if it was 18 or 19, whatever it was. And that was their identity. They were going to transition high pressing. Ernst Sander was clear about that in his introductory press conference. Harris Medunjanin is a lot of very good things. He ain't a pressing player at this age, no matter how good his left foot is. So a signal of that shift was to let him go, and his budget charge, they declined an option, let him go. And they brought in Jose Martinez, this no-name player from the Venezuelan league. Nobody had really ever heard of him. There was a lot of internal strife about that decision. That was driven by Ernst Sander. It was a clear shift, and this is how we want to play. There was a lot of people in the organization saying, very upset at Ernst Sander at the front office for that decision. You're ruining what we have. How could you let Harris Medunjanin walk for, bringing in Jose Martinez through no fault of his own was face out. That game against LAFC, he was insane. And as the story was retold to me, didn't hear Harris Medunjanin's name again that season. There was no more regrets. There was no more arguments. It was, oh, yeah, this guy's the guy. We got a gem. We're going to be good. And now he helps lead them to Supporters' Shield that year. He's been at the heart of every big moment that they've had over the years. They don't have this run without him, full stop. I had him as the best defensive midfield in the league, or at least the top 3, top 5, his entire run here.
Yep.
Like, this is one of the best value signings of the last 5 to 10 years in Major League Soccer. It was like $300,000, and his last contract was still like it was in the TAM level. Like, you never had to keep pushing it up to like max TAM or anything like that. He's going to be missed, and these are the type of signings of unearthing an absolute gem that has been in the Philadelphia Union's MO. It's been at the heart of what they've done, and it feels like an end of an era. It's just him on his own, and it's sad. It's a sad day that he's leaving, but that's the nature of this game. And Jose Martinez, man, you're going to be missed around MLS.
Absolutely, and he wasn't supposed to be Medunjanin's replacement. Also, by the way, they had signed a TAM player from Slovakia or Slovenia, Orvicech, in that window, and Jose Martinez was like $300,000 from Venezuela. It's a play for the future. We'll see what he is. And he immediately took over that spot. And as you said, he was at the heartbeat of everything they've done. His ability to cover ground, I think, allowed Alejandro Bedoya to sort of age in place, but still be super dangerous and super successful for them. I think it allowed Brendan Aronson to take over and learn to do what he did best over the course of these 4 years. And then Jack McGlynn, I think, as much as anyone, that setup for him was really comfortable because Jose Martinez did so much work behind him and was such a reliable piece that you could put Jack McGlynn out there. You could take that risk as Jim Curtin when he was a young, doesn't cover a ton of ground, but magic left foot player because you knew Jose Martinez was going to clean up issues behind him and clean up messes. And the way he plays is the way Philadelphia wants to play. And he embodied everything for them in what has been an extremely successful run, but one with only one trophy. So now they go in to another semifinal. They will not be favorites in Columbus. As you have said, Columbus, they don't lose very often at home. These two teams haven't played yet this year because they are scheduled to play on Saturday in Major League Soccer. That game has been rescheduled to next Wednesday because you can guarantee that one of those teams will be playing in a Leagues Cup final this weekend, and the other one will be playing in a massive third place Leagues Cup match that we will be doing 24-hour around-the-clock coverage of here at SoccerWise HQ. That's where the HQ part really comes in for this one. So we don't have a lot to go off of between these two teams matching up this year. Obviously, a lot of similar pieces to what we saw last year when these two teams played. And for Philadelphia, Curtin confirmed Ty Baribo will be suspended for this one. I don't even know the appeal process that could have happened.
Can you technically, it being a double yellow? I don't think you can.
I don't think you can, which means they got screwed. That VAR helped the referee downgrade the call from the original red card. So Baribo won't be available. I put a couple options down of who could play in his place. We have to emphasize how big a loss that is. He has been their best player. I think he won MLS Player of the Month in the month of July. Mm-hmm. He has been on a tear in Leagues Cup. He's been on a tear over the course of this summer. He has replaced Carranza finally with some goal scoring. There's a few different options that Philadelphia can go with here. The ones I wrote down is Sam Adeniran starts as like for like alongside Mikel Ura. Or you could slide either Daniel Gazdag or a Sullivan higher alongside Ura and bring in a Bedoya or a Bueno or someone like that into that midfield diamond. What do you expect to see? What would you want to see?
Sam Adeniran starting. I think too, just like, one, I think that's the best play. I think that you just put max chaos on the field and try to go at Columbus. Like, for all the good we've talked about Columbus, they can be had in quick, decisive transition moments. And the human side of it, if you're Sam Adeniran and Ty Baribo gets suspended and you're still not starting, like, why the hell did I get traded here? Like, what's the point, right? So you have to manage that, but, like, that's secondary for me because it's the correct decision, I think, to start Sam Adeniran. What would you do, guys?
I think I'm probably on the same page as you. I feel like in watching the NYCFC game and watching Philly, I think the only option for Philly is to try and beat Columbus with direct aerial balls in the box. And Sam Adeniran's going to bring that for you. Mikel Ura doesn't really do that. The other option to me would be to push Gazdag into this. In the last game after the red card, they slid Gazdag up top by himself at one point in all of the substitutions. And like, I think he's fine there. The problem is he doesn't partner with Ura. So if Ura was suspended, I would say put Gazdag there because he could play with Adeniran or Baribo. I think him and Ura do a little bit too much of the same thing, which is float into the channels to try and pick up the ball. So I think I'm probably on the same page as you. I don't care as much about Adeniran like earning his spot or getting it. They traded him for nothing. He's not a start. He wasn't a starter in MLS when he arrived. Like, that's not Jim Curtin's job right now. His job is to win this game and get them into a final. And if it was something else where it's like, oh, it's a DP, he's not scoring goals, like, what do you do? Does this ruin the whole signing? I could understand. I think this situation's a little bit different with this one. But it did give me the feeling, I felt like I was going back in time to 2021 MLS Cup of like, oh, if this one piece is hurt, which was Bedoya at the time, this team's going to play 13 players and the options are very limited. And I think that's your frustration if you're a Philly fan and this doesn't work out in this semifinal, which is you got rid of Carranza, Baribo's hitting, you got rid of Jose Martinez, whether it's Leon Flock or Jesus Bueno. I think they've got good options in those spots. You are not deeper. You are not better. You have made money to be the same, which is great for operating the team. But this is the wall that they have come up against time and time again over the last 4 years.
I just want to say that you're a coward. This was the perfect spot to be like, dude, Kevin Sullivan has to start this game.
I'm waiting for someone to throw that in.
No, I was looking at our depth charts and I was like, man, Goss missed opportunity here. If we were going for clicks, but this is Goss. He is always forthright and honest. He would never do a take for clicks. It just comes naturally.
Yeah, I would never
but yeah, like to not to get off the joke and back
as I rail against the team not winning a game they haven't played yet.
No, like I understand. Like I think just like they brought in Sam Adeniran. I really like that trade, by the way. But like and particularly if they're able to re-sign. But like they still haven't replaced Julian Carranza. Like I guess Ty Baribo could technically be that, but like it would have been nice to bring in another attacking player on a DP or TAMish deal, right? Like you know that they're not going to go out and spend a Cucho Hernandez fee, but like. In the Daniel Gazdag, Mikel Ura mold, like Gazdag ended up being somewhere north of 2. Like Mikel Ura was what 2.8 or 3 million, right? Like, was there not anything in the budget even for that? Like we're not even asking for a whole lot here, so like it's a little disappointing. But hey man, this is just what the team does, and it'll hurt a lot if it feels like you said they make 2 subs while Columbus are bringing DeJuan Jones and Jason Russell Rowe off the bench and you know,
Chambos, who scored in his debut, signing. I think that's the stark difference. And that's with the Columbus team that doesn't play very deep and like doesn't use a lot of options. They want 16 or 17 available, but they traded for DeJuan Jones this year, who is a borderline USMNT player and all of that. AZ Jackson as well, where they've got some options and they've got some depth. For Columbus, I think we both feel like it's going to be the same 11 that we've seen for all the knockout games. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, dude, I always assume so, but like, man, who knows? Who knows? Like you said, there's 18 players that can start.
Yeah, Nanse can do whatever he wants. I think for me, the X factors in this game are Kai Wagner's positioning, because as I talked about in the NYCFC game, a lot of Columbus's dangerous attack comes through Christian Ramirez dropping into the right half space, or Mo Farsi floating into that right half space, or Diego Rossi. And that's where if Wagner's caught too high up field, there's a ton of opening, but also he has to be inside enough to be able to block those channels while still being able to win his 1v1 battles, most likely against Mo Farsi. So I think his play is massive because on the other side, set pieces is the biggest way Philadelphia wins this game, and his set piece service is probably going to be the difference if they're able to get over the line in Columbus.
Yeah, I'm fully there too. Again, in these, it's not a sexy talking point, or it doesn't make me sound very smart, but like these games come down to set pieces a lot of the time, and like that is such an edge to have in a knockout round game, particularly if you're Philly on the road against Columbus, a team that has only lost twice at home in 41 games in the last couple of years. Like set pieces, you gotta make a difference.
It's not sexy, and we're going to do it twice because Colorado's the same. These are similar matchups in that they are two teams who are underdogs going on the road, who are elite at set pieces, against two teams that are massive favorites that create a ton of chances in the run of play at home. So that part of it's not going to go away. Philly are the best in the league. Colorado are top four once again, returning to that spot in this one. So let's dig into our Western Conference. You want to do picks? We don't really do picks.
Not really.
Do you want to do picks?
Not particularly.
You don't want to put your name on something that can come back and haunt
picks?
you for no reason?
What is this, WFAN in the 90s? We're going to go through the schedule and pick up W and L's for
Listen, the Jets are already going
Giants
13 and 4 this year, so I can tell you, win, in Dallas, loss, win. It's one of my favorite things to do. I love a schedule read. I'll say Columbus in this one. I'll throw it out there. I'll be
really
bold.
wanted to live there.
I'll say the team that has lost twice in the last 2 years at home doesn't lose again. You want to say a name?
Sure, Columbus. Why?
Wow,
I'm
Tom.
not a big prediction.
Wow.
I just don't find this to be that interesting.
What an idiot. I can't believe you did that. What a goon. All right, let's jump into LAFC versus Colorado. LAFC, 3-0 win in Seattle to get here. Big news point before the game started. Kike Oliveira didn't dress in this game. Tom is telling me he had an injury, so he didn't play in this game. So they went 5 in the back instead. Oliveira started and had a goal in the previous game against San Jose. There are Uruguayan reporters who are putting little seeds of rumors out there that Tom is slapping down as we go through things. So I'm not going to talk about any connections or rumors to clubs overseas for Kike Oliveira. I'm not even going to mention the idea that it could be out there in this show. It's not even going to be said at any point around this LAFC team. And then LAFC go to Seattle and they do what they do best. It's what we slightly saw last year in the playoffs. They sit a little deeper, they run into the space over the top, and they terrorize the Seattle back line like 3 times a game, but they score 100% of them, and Seattle's going home. This time it was Ryan Hollingshead off a ball from Maxime Chenot. It's one of the better goals you're going to see this year, and it's like these are some of the advantages LAFC have. They have a fullback who can play on both sides, who was a winger and an all-star in that position in MLS, who's going to be able to go in and score a goal if you're going to press numbers against Bouanga and try and protect against him. And it's sort of LAFC's ability. They score off a set piece 5 minutes later, and at 12 minutes into this game, they're up 2-0, and Seattle's like looks completely lost in this one.
Yeah, completely lost. It's just another game where LAFC beating Seattle. It was disappointing how quickly it seemed like it was over. Like, again, in the 25th minute when Kai Kamara scored, it's like, I feel like this game is over. And I feel like it's more likely to be 3-0 than 2-1 because now LAFC have Seattle playing into their hands, and there can be Denny Bouanga on the counter. Guess what? Denny Bouanga hits him on the counter. Another assist for Hugo Lloris to Bouanga. This is how they drew it up. This is how they play. Me and you were talking about how difficult it's going to be to pick a midfield trio. And Steve Gerundolo was like, you know what? Actually, I'm just going to pick a midfield duo.
Yeah.
It's even harder because Tim Tillman's injured. Lewis O'Brien's still on the bench. I'd assume that they would stick to the 3 at the back, right? Like against Colorado. But like, at what point will Olivier Giroud be ready to start? Is it this week or no? Right? Like, I don't know the answer to that question. Same thing with Lewis O'Brien. It's so interesting to me that their 3 at the back seems like this would be the way that Omar Campos would be playing because he's such an attack-minded fullback. And even at that, you still have Ryan Hollingshead playing inverted on the left, scoring goals, contributing to goals. There's so many ways that this team can be dangerous. No Kike Oliveira, as you said. Doesn't matter. Still going to put up 3 on the road. So, yeah, like it's just the same old song with this team in a good way. That, like you look at it and go, oh, man, that's disappointing. Are they going to play in the back foot? And then, like you said, it doesn't matter if they have 4 attacks or scoring 3 goals or whatever it is, right? Like, just a masterclass in a knockout round tournament on the road.
No Giroud from the start as well in this one. Kai Kamara got the start in that position. And then Hugo Lloris gets an assist. in this game. Yeah, that's like the French goalkeeper guy. That's who I'm talking about. He gets the assist, full punt out to Bouanga, opening like 5-10 minutes of the second half. Bouanga takes his touch, goes in, and scores. And like I did a whole rant about this yesterday. Bouanga is one of the most reliable from a minutes point of view attacking players in Major League Soccer. I didn't do it cleanly yesterday. I should have said it this way. He's third if you go by attacking players' minutes in MLS play over the course of this year. Daniel Shalhoub, and I think the other one actually was Brooks Lennon. So maybe he's second on that list. He also has 21 goals in all comps. And like when he's on the field, they have a chance, and he's always on the field. And that moment is lurking for every team anytime you play them. And it was good night at that point. It was Steph Curry, go to sleep. Like, okay, at 2-0 coming out of halftime, you're at home. Seattle gets the goal. They get the momentum on their side. And that Bouanga goal just ends things. And that's what this team's capable of.
Yeah, the individual talent that comes from Denny Bouanga, the ability to have a one-man attack in Denny Bouanga, so you don't even need to commit further numbers forward to the attack. That's something they've done more this year of building out a little bit more and creating chances like that. But like at any point, they could just revert to like they did here. Cool, we'll sit deep. You get a corner, put some numbers forward. Denny Bouanga stay at midfield. You don't need to come back. We'll defend with 10, and you stay forward. And then you're in a defensive quarter becomes an attacking possibility because Seattle's exposed themselves by trying to do the right thing, score off a corner, put numbers forward, and all it takes is a bad play. Hugo Lloris getting up immediately and punting it to Bouanga. Like,
oh, you want to push numbers forward on a corner? Are you sure about that? You thought,
dude? This is like I know the bingo card of me before seeing Liverpool. This is how I felt about Liverpool in the early Klopp days when like teams stopped giving them opportunities to press, stopped giving Mane and Salah any opportunities to run behind. I was like, at what point do you pass the ball to Van Dijk and tell him to kick it out for a corner kick? Because I feel like this is our best chance because we can't break down a set defense. Give him a corner kick. I'll roll the dice on that for sure.
So I don't want to veer us too far from the Liverpool conversation because that's obviously the core DNA of what we want to do on this show. So in danger of doing that, though, to your point, so last year LAFC went to Seattle, knocked them off 1-0 in the playoffs, ended up going to Columbus. They had 30% possession in that game. So this one, they had 40% possession. They gave up one shot on goal, 8 shots on goal last year, only 1 shot on goal this year. So LAFC has added more possession back into their game. I think Eddie Atuesta is a big part of that. I think Bogusz, his elevation and his comfort in the team, Kike Oliveira as well. My assumption is Giroud and Lewis O'Brien. I got in Giroud, and then Lewis O'Brien almost became ethnic in that moment. I couldn't break out between the two of them. Maybe living in LA, he will become Luis O'Brien at some point, McAllister style. But in that game, so LAFC has showed, I think, some of their progression, but also their danger and their ability. Now, they come home and they will play Colorado, which is a different game state and a different style. Before we get there, next week on Wednesday, Seattle faces off against LAFC in a single elimination knockout match. That one is a U.S. Open Cup semifinal. It is a bizarre setup that this is how the schedule falls for these two teams. We already have Indy 11 fans in the chat saying root for LAFC to win Leagues Cup so that Indy 11 can qualify for the CONCACAF Champions Cup, which they would do so if they made the final no matter what, because LAFC would have already qualified their spot. And then Cavincio obviously throwing SKC in there as well, as if anyone's talking about SKC right now, who will face Indy next Tuesday in the other semifinal. LAFC have hosting rights to US Open Cup. How do you think they manage like minutes and players in terms of how much they care about that versus they could play in a Leagues Cup final on Sunday here, and then come out of that and have to go straight into that Open Cup semifinal?
Yeah, it's something up for consideration, but like you bring it back to the Bouanga point, like that dude's a cyborg. He plays 90 minutes all the time, no matter what. So like, and he doesn't seem to have any wear and tear on him ever. So they should be fine there, and they have enough options where, again, Lewis O'Brien should start one of these two games. Like you can rotate carefully, and I wouldn't even call it rotation because that makes it like there's a big distinction from their top air quote bench players in the starting 11. Like Lewis O'Brien and Olivier Giroud coming to the starting lineup doesn't make the team worse. Kai Kamara starting doesn't make the team worse, right? Like, so there are a couple stalwarts that as long as Ilie and Atuesta and Murillo, Bouanga, and Bogusz and Hollingshead. If those 6 or 7 and plus Lloris, if those start, you still have trophy-winning lineups available. So I think that's what they'll do. But the other end of that is they haven't had the fixture congestion this year than they did last year.
Right.
So even if they just make one change of those 2 lineups, they should be fine. And then when you get to your next MLS regular season game, then you rotate. Then maybe you manage the minutes. But one of the best things Trundle's done over 2.5 years as manager is rotating the team. And again, he does have the cheat code, and Bouanga doesn't ever need to be rotated, but he's kept this team fresh despite historic levels of fixture congestion for an MLS club.
Seattle travels to Minnesota this weekend for their game, and then they come back. If I'm Seattle, I'm shipping everything in that Minnesota game for a chance to win an Open Cup semifinal. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see a rotated group for that Seattle game so that you can be where you want to be. They are hosting once again next Wednesday, so they're going to be in a similar situation. But I think that's got to be the focus for that team. And as you said, this LAFC group, they go 3 or 4 deep at center back. They can rotate. They can rotate in central midfield. As we know now, not having Olivero would be a little bit of a hit because he is a singular chance creator for them, which is rare. But Bogusz can still play. And if you think Oliveira's 2 weeks away, maybe you push Bogusz through these next 3 games, knowing you can rotate him out or rotate Bouanga out or whatever going forward. Let's talk Colorado.
Sorry, real quick. I don't think, unless that I'm getting bad information from the website I'm looking on, I don't
Seattle
think
away.
No, I don't think. No, I'm saying that Seattle. I don't think that they've beat LAFC since 2021 in 9 games.
Oh, nice.
So this is a pretty huge game for Seattle, particularly off the back of getting waxed 3-0 at home. If they lose again to LAFC, that's. As if 9 isn't enough, right? But this is a pretty huge game for Seattle to be oh no, we're not 100% secondary to them right now, right?
Yeah.
They've been dining off the 2019 when they beat.
Yeah, 2019 Western Conference Finals.
Yeah. They've been dining out on that a while.
Brian was better than Bob.
Yeah, I was surprised.
He's waiting for Bob to come back. He's like, I've got tactics if Bob Bradley wants to coach this team.
But so that's the moment that sticks out when you think of Seattle LAFC for me, and obviously last year's playoffs. But if the numbers are correct, that's 9 games in a row. That's a bit of a joke for 2 teams who have been near the top of the West this entire time.
Yeah, it wouldn't be shocking because even on LAFC's downtime in this Cherundolo Bob Bradley run, they became harder for Seattle to beat because they gave away more possession, which is what Seattle did to go beat LAFC in 2019. Henry Elliott in the chat says Seattle has scored 1 goal in open play against LAFC in the 8 matches as well. So that has been the struggle for the Seattle team. It's been their struggle the whole season this year, but it has especially been against LAFC. So that's going to be a massive one coming up next week. We'll obviously recap that one for you. We're planning something. Maybe we'll do something a little bit live as well during that game here at Soccer Wise. Let's go to the other side of this semifinal. Colorado, baby. Knocking off Club America. Battle of the Gigantes. The Colorado Rapids, one of the biggest names in the game. Club America, this team some people have heard of. They go head-to-head, and Colorado gets the victory in this one. Went on a bit of a rant yesterday about how big a win or moment this was for the Rapids in their club's history. They've been to 2 MLS Cups. They've won 1. That would probably be the biggest game they've ever played, would be my assumption. And Matt Kanji gave his ACL for them to win an MLS Cup, so I would hope it would be. As Charlie Fiction throws the "Pid Still We Die," which is not the words that Georgi Mihailovic used after this game, but it's what Charlie's choosing to use there in our graphic here. The Rapids, though, where does this rank in your thoughts of this club and sort of what have they accomplished already this year?
Yeah, I was really high in Colorado going into the season. I really liked all of their moves. I was good with the hire of Chris Armas. I thought that he should be given one more chance as a manager in MLS. And all of it's worked out. Georgi Mihailovic has been excellent. Zach Steffen started pretty bad. Not gonna lie, they had us in the first half here in terms of his season, but he's been very good over the last couple months, right? All of the signings worked out. Most importantly, they wanted to change the system back to what made them successful in 21, and that's what they were getting under Armas. And they've gotten a lot right. This has been an awesome year. Even with other people who have liked those moves, myself included, I'd be lying to you if I said they were going to get to the Leagues Cup semifinal and beat Club America, all that stuff, right? Like, but I thought they were going to be very good. There's still people who said, I don't know if this makes them a playoff team or much more than just getting in the playoffs. Like, this team has shown, I guess, proof of concept here that when things go well, they can still be one of the better teams in the Western Conference. This game, again, it ends up in penalties. It could have went either way, right? But what an awesome night. What an awesome game. What an awesome accomplishment for the Colorado Raps. I'm not taking anything here.
And I will say, because once again, the games were at separate times, so I watched all of the games. Colorado was equally as dangerous throughout large stretches of this game. They did not sit in and protect. It wasn't full pressing and opening up their lines, but they were good in possession. Georgie looked good. Cole Bassett looked good in this game. Rafa Navarro is finding really interesting spots to pick up the ball and create for the other guys. Like, he'll float out into the channel and set up a Georgie run or a Cole Bassett run. There was a few moments where it looked like Jonathan Lewis or Calvin Harris, when he subbed on, were going to get out into transition and create danger. So this was like a really strong performance from Colorado, on top of then going in and winning in the shootout and doing it against a massive opponent and setting yourself up. I agree with you on everything that's happened so far. Let me ask this question. If they qualify for CONCACAF Champions Cup, whether it's as a third place team or a final loser, and then I guess winning Leagues Cup would be a different thing. Yeah, hand motion on that one. Is it already mission accomplished this year? Is it already a successful first year for Armis?
Yes. But it's not like they're viewing this as, icing on the cake. Oh, whatever happens, we're just happy to be here, right? Like, my view is that this is absolutely a successful season from everything they've done, what they've built, and the long-term standing that they're going to have. Like, George is here for the long haul, right? The foundation they have, everything. Like, this is not just like scoring off a bunch of set pieces or, game after game being outpossessed, outshot, whatever. Like, all of this is sustainable. So, yes, this is a success no matter what. Obviously, they are desperate for more. They are desperate to win this tournament, continue with the playoffs, be as good as they possibly can be throughout the season. But for me, no matter what happens from here on out, this is a successful season. Like, remember how bad they were, at this time last year? They were a joke. Yeah. They were an afterthought. Like, it was right before Robin Fraser got fired. There was so much wrong with the team. And you looked at it then, I was like, I don't know how long this rebuild is. Like, can they turn it around within a year, right? Like, a successful season would have been like what we're talking about for Minnesota, Toronto. Like, hey, if you finish ninth, right, like in a transition year, like, well done. Like, that's kind of where Colorado was this time last year.
Forward and feel better about life.
Yeah, genuinely and generally. There was a lot of people like Chris Armishire guessed that they're not serious, that they're going to suck this year. Who cares, right? And this has been an awesome season. Like, they've proved a lot wrong, and most importantly for me is that this is a sustainable foundation that's replicable. Again, whether they finish, what are they, 4th or 5th now? Like, again, whether they're 4th or 5th or 7th or 8th, whatever, right? Like, that's what this team is. Like, they're not overperforming in a crazy way.
It's similar, I think, to Houston. And Houston made the conference final run last year. That's their feather in their cap, but they won the U.S. Open Cup as well. I think this run is that for Colorado because, as you said, the sustainability part is like the core is coming back. It is not guys we brought on loan that we probably can't afford or 5 Moist Bombitos where it's like we're not going to hang on to all of these pieces. They lost Bombito. That's a huge loss. You'd hope they'll use the money to reinvest and make them stronger. But the spine of this success is Stefan, it's Maxu, it is Cole Bassett, Georgi Mihailovic, Rafa Navarro. All of those players are under contract. All of those players are going to be a part of this going forward. And so I completely agree with you on that side of like you've reset who you are and what you can do. But this is a huge opportunity for them. So this one's going to be 10 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday night. The first game is going to be 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. So doubleheader there on Wednesday night coming up for your Leagues Cup semifinal. LAFC beat Colorado 3-0 on June 29th, and Colorado beat LAFC 3-2 on March 30th. The 3-0 one was in LA. LA was up 2-0, and Kevin Cabral picked up a red card, which changed things a little bit, and Bombito and Kike Olivera were not there because Copa America had already started. They also won't be there for this one, we think. Well, at least Bombito won't, which we'll get into in just a moment. Let me ask you this question before we get into what we think happens, and you pick your winners, and I obviously wait on the side. You think Olivier Giroud starts?
I think that they're going to keep being careful. I think if he had one more, like, what's it been, a week and a half in training? I still think that they might wait one more game to start him because they've just in their history of what they've like. I feel like just in like Gareth Bale, we kept on saying when's he going to start? When's he? I know that these are two significantly different things. Gareth Bale was dealing with a lot of physical ailments that we were not aware of when he was coming to LA, or like we knew that there might be issues, but like I don't know that there's anything wrong with Olivier Giroud. I think that they're just going to be overly cautious. I think that he would start the final, but I don't think he will tomorrow.
He's played 45 minutes in the 2 games, both off the bench so far. And as you said, he's been in training for about a week and a half. The only thing that gives me pause is the game states fit him, which is they're going to have possession in this game.
True.
And so if you don't play 3 or 5 in the back, whatever you want to call it, you could bring Giroud in and play off him.
Yeah.
But you put yourself in a little bit of a bind if you start him because you'll have to take him off. At the same time, you get the halftime window. You have Kai Kamara as an option. You can slide Bogusz as a false 9. If you believe he can give you that and you want to play from a lead early, I say put him out there in this one. And like, if you sub him 35 or 45 minutes in, it is not the end all be all. But as you said, this is a club that's not going to risk him if he's not physically capable, because winning MLS Cup and pushing for Supporter Shield and all of that long term is the reason they brought him in. But it does go down to, I think, for LAFC, this is not going to be the Seattle game. Colorado's going to come out. They're going to press them. Colorado's going to push their numbers high. If LAFC sits in, they're going to be under pressure the whole game. And if LAFC tries to play through it, they're going to expose themselves. So they're going to have to find a way to have the front line be linked up. When they go long, it's got to be more than just Bouanga, because it can't just be him out in transition every single time for 90 minutes. They're going to need someone to connect. If it's not Giroud, then it's probably Kai, because Kai has shown he's still got the wheels. He can still run in transition. And my guess is it's probably a front 3 of Bogusz, Kai, and Bouanga with someone else in midfield. You'd love for it to have been Tillman. It clearly can't be Tillman because he won't be healthy. And I wouldn't be shocked if it was Lewis O'Brien if he was capable of going as well.
Yeah, I think that's right, Lena. And just one last point on Giroud is that I disagree. I would like, in the age of 5 substitutes, if he's 45 minutes fit, put him in at halftime.
Yeah, but if you go to, well, I guess you can't go to extra time.
That's I.
Because you go straight to penalties. Yeah, that's fair. Okay, that makes sense. I refuse to accept that premise, but it makes sense. And I will say this. I went back and watched the June 29th game, and as I said, some things were different. But one of the things Colorado struggles a little bit with, and one of the things that LAFC is elite with, is 1v1. And so when Colorado extends their numbers and presses, if someone gets beat 1v1, that's where it all starts to collapse. So if it's Ilie or Atuesta on the half turn under pressure, once they break out, now you've got runners in front of them. If it's Bouanga beating a Sam Vines or a Keegan Rosenberry 1v1, that's going to cause chaos as well. And so those are the danger moments. The danger moments are the moments that Colorado wants, which is they're putting a player under pressure, they're stepping high, they're attacking. But if they lose that battle, that's where it comes. And that's where it can be really, really dangerous. At the same time, Colorado went and won in this game earlier in the year, which was one of the big turnaround moments for them. After sort of up and down rocky start, that was the like, oh, this might work win all the way back in March. And it has remained since then, where they won a lot of those battles. And when they did, they were clear chances and they were able to put those goals away in this one. I mentioned it in the Philly convo. Set pieces are huge. Colorado top 4 in the league. Their service is good. It's a large segment of time where they can stay high up the field and counter press off of missed set pieces as long as they're dangerous on the first ball and as long as they attack it. And that's going to be a huge setup for this Colorado team as well. You want to pick a winner?
Colorado, sure.
Ooh, I was going to go Colorado as well. You think it's the death knell to Columbus and Colorado if we both pick them in both of them?
No, because this doesn't mean anything. So I don't think that.
Tom, you just give so much meaning to everything we do, and you
Sorry,
warm my heart. Yeah, I'm buzzing off the back of that one. My wife's at Taylor Swift in London right now, but this is where I want to be, with you on this, talking about these games right now. I'm going to pick Colorado as well, though, but if it isn't, it will be Columbus LAFC in a final for the second time in a year, and it would be pretty cool to watch because I think LAFC is better than they were last year. And I would think LAFC would be drooling at the opportunity to show Columbus that last year was the fluke.
Well, that's what we thought when Columbus went to LAFC earlier this summer, and they got waxed.
Yep. It is what we thought. And so I'm holding on to say that it would happen this time. A little bit different. But we will see. It will be very interesting to see if that's the game that goes down. We'll be back on Thursday live, so we'll recap all these games. We'll talk about what happened. We'll preview that final. We'll preview the full weekend of MLS action, and then we'll be back next Tuesday. So we'll talk Open Cup there, SKC Indy, the other Open Cup match, as we said, LAFC Seattle on Wednesday. Philly plays Columbus on Wednesday as well. There's Canadian Championship next week. That's what we do here at SoccerWise. We are on every single day, all week, to bring you that content and to keep you locked in. Of course, we've got NWSL coming up tomorrow as well, with Jordan and Tom. Now is the time for you to say everything that matters and everything you care about. Let's finish off. It's a beautiful day. We don't even need to cool off. Let's finish off in the ice cream shop, though.
Let's go. So let's talk about my FC Cincinnati story from Friday. Just kind of recapping what happened in the transfer window. So they end up signing Nico Gioacchini and Chidozie Awaziem. Gioacchini was one that came together at the end of the window. That wasn't their first thought, first plan, first ideas. As I detailed in this, they started with a months-long pursuit of Weston McKennie. I was told that went back all the way to March. FC Cincinnati had executives go to Italy to speak with McKennie, hang out with him, spend time. McKennie visited FC Cincinnati's facilities on an off day for the national team. That kind of kicked off when people started figuring out about this rumors, myself included. Like, that was when I first caught wind of it. And when I was talking to sources, they're like, nah, this has been going on for months and months. He was, with the FC Cincinnati ownership. They tried really hard to make that work through a combination of factors on a big deal like that. It didn't happen. All the while, they were looking at Josh Sargent as well. They had a bid of up around $20 million rejected by Norwich, which seems crazy to me. Norwich were asking for $25 million,
classic,
bare minimum, and Cincinnati weren't going to go that high. $20 million was kind of where they're going to stop, and that's what that, like, personal terms. I don't know if they were full blown, like, agreed down to the word, the contractual details, but I was assured by several sources that personal terms weren't going to be an issue. Sargent was open and would be happy to have gone to Cincinnati. So it was about the clubs agreeing a fee, and they didn't. I'm told that pursuit is still active, or those talks are still active, in the sense that this could be a winter signing, because Nico Gioacchini's loan deal expires in the winter. And it's I'll get to Gioacchini in a second, because after Sargent, once that was clear that wasn't happening, their third big target that they felt really good about as well, German Bertrame, the CF Monterrey forward. He had a $15 million release clause. Cincy were like, we're not going to mess around here. We don't, maybe we could, change the terms of the payment structure, or get cute with a different bid, but we're just going to trigger the release clause. They had agreements on a contract with Bertrame. As far as Bertrame told them, I'm in, let's go, can't wait. They drafted up a press release. They booked time at the stadium for his introductory photos and everything that would go with an announcement. They drew up plans for when he was going to travel, and the next day, Bertrame pulled out of the deal due to personal reasons. This is all via several sources. Portland Timbers, they had a similar story with Bertrame. They felt pretty strongly that they were going to sign him. And then kind of at the end, when they thought they got the okay from the player, didn't happen. So FC Cincinnati they came close to signing McKennie, Sargent, or German Bertrame this summer, and that's not to be super dismissive of Gioacchini. I think that's a really good deal that they were able to get it done, most importantly because it keeps their flexibility for the winter. So this winter, Lucho Costa is a DP. That's not going to change. Obi Nwobodo can be bought down. And obviously Gioacchini, who's currently kind of babysitting the DP spot, is going to be off of it. So they could technically add 2 DPs, but right now, the assumption I'm working under is that they're going to be a team that does the 2 DPs, 40-20 initiatives, and the $2 million allocation money, because they would need that allocation money to keep together this roster. They have a lot of TAM players. Chidozie Awaziem, like if Miles Robinson comes back with the option in his contract, a back three of Miazga, Robinson, and Awaziem, I am desperate to see that over a season. I hope it happens, but those are 3. And 2 of them are just about max TAM, and I don't know what the number that Awaziem is going to come in, but he's going to be a TAM player. That's expensive. If they want to keep Luca Orieno, who's on loan, that's going to be expensive, right? To buy down Obi Nwobodo, That's going to be expensive. So they need the allocation money in the 2-4-2 situation, and they'd still have a DP spot open to go get, hopefully, Josh Sargent or another forward or another big name player. They have a lot of money, and they intend to use it in the winter. Fans were not thrilled that these were near misses rather than signings, but the process here, I think, is correct. And if you do the process well, this is significantly better than after missing on Bertrame, being like, oh, crap, who's out there? Just use a name like from years past. Jurgen Locadia, like, you seem like a good sign. You might not have been our top choice, but screw it. And then you put yourself in a hole for a few years trying to get out of a bad contract. So I think that they overall had a really strong window. It could have been an A+ if they got Sargent, Bertrame, or McKinney over the line, but they didn't. But they still have options to do this in the winter. So FC Cincinnati, very interesting from what happened in the last couple weeks of the window.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the explanation behind it sort of goes to when we did the show last week and we were doing our winners and losers. FC Cincinnati fans came in hot into the chat. They're in the Discord as well with a lot of frustration. And, I think we both kind of were like, well, they did what they could. As you then pull the curtain back on that, you can understand the frustration of like they were on the verge of 3 huge players. And you're talking about financial outlays that are like bordering record setting in MLS, which as a fan is super exciting. But also, like, they tried. They did what they could. They thought they had it done. They tried. And, like, shout out to a Charlotte, who were still able to get a 27-year-old Spanish player. But Nico Gioacchini is probably not that far off for the rest of this year as some of those guys are, because he's already played in MLS, because he already understands the style, and he fits into the system pretty well. And, like, either way, you're not getting your guy at that point. And so how can you remain competitive and not do that? I would throw out there, and anyone listening or watching who's not a Patreon subscriber, we've got our depth charts and our salary caps tables out here. Sergio Santos on 900,000, and he's got an option for next year. So there's some other money to get out of as well.
Yes. I don't know exactly what the breakdown on how many years. Like, I do know that Philly were holding some of that from the initial trade. I don't know if it's still there now, but like that's the kind of thing that won't be publicly announced. So I don't know if they're spending that exact amount of money, but as you said, like they're paying something, right? So like that's an easy one to move on from, right? But yeah,
and they've got most of the other pieces under lock. You would throw in there if they bring in those 3 center backs with the pieces they have. We have said a lot, U22s are not super reliable, and so it's like tough to say win now. But they have so many experienced pieces that they wouldn't have to rely on those U22s. And then you're operating on the like, if 2 hit quickly, then we're okay because we don't need all 4 to be starters and stars and carry our team. So they're in a pretty safe place to use those spots and potentially use them well. And with the money they've chosen to spend, they could go the Luca Langoni direction and say, like, this guy's a quote-unquote U22, but he's an experienced, expensive player that just fits under this designation. So I think that should be exciting for Cincinnati fans as well. Anything else?
Yeah, John Tolkien, New York Red Bulls left back. John Tolkien was subject of a bid. It was a loan with a purchase obligation from a Bundesliga club. It was somewhere that, it lower table, so there's the risk of relegation, I'd assume. But it'd be a place where he could play all the games. That's how it was described to me. The Red Bulls, at this stage with the window closed, don't particularly want to transfer out John Tolkien and not be able to replace him. They would prefer it to be the winter, but obviously the teams that are in for him, and it's not just a German club. I've heard some interest that kind of popped up during the Olympics while he was there. The clubs that are interested would be interested in a move right now. So that's kind of what's going back and forth with John Tolkien. There are still clubs watching him, and I think an important part of this is after he signed his contract extension, what was that, May? Something like that? I was like, oh, he's just going to be here for a while. Like, that's cool. Like, I was told don't read into the contract extension as he's going to stay for even a couple more years, right? Like that, right. The club would have been open. Like if this came up on July 20th, higher likelihood of something happening just because they would have had the chance to replace him. So the club didn't sign him and then said, nope, you can't leave for another year and a half, or whatever, right? Like so, this is more about the timing of the move or the timing of the bids or interest, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's a little unfortunate the timing because they've got Kyle Duncan, who you don't love having your full-time starter, but like you could have gotten someone who you're acceptable with for the rest of this year and sold Tolkien and not have taken a huge step back. So I think for Red Bulls, that's got to be a little frustrating because you could see a world in which Yeah, they don't go and get like a huge star, but they get a solid star. They could have traded for Anthony Martinez, and they could have played Dylan Nealis at right back, Cameron Harper as a right back option, Kyle Duncan and Martinez at left back, and been fine this year and made a bunch of money off the sale of John Tolkien. I don't think that deal will go away based off the way he's played in this team. This team is better than it's been the last few years, and I think his production has come with that. So I think if you're Red Bulls, you're not super nervous about saying like, oh, this is the one chance to get him out, like the Jose Martinez deal probably for Philadelphia, where they were like, we don't think this number will be there again. I wouldn't say that with Tolkien, but if you're a Red Bull fan, I think you'll be frustrated if you get rid of him because, as we've said, they could be in a win now mode if everyone's healthy, and this is the best team they've had in 5 years going forward. So it'll be interesting. It is a position that they develop pretty well at those fullback spots. They already have Curtis Ofori on the contract. They've had some other fullbacks as well that they've pushed through. So we'll see what happens there going forward. Anything else you want to add?
No, I mean, Moise Bombito and Andres Gomez went final. Bombito, I think, at $7.7 million, which is a new league record for a center back. It's a very easily a Colorado Rapids record. I believe Sam Vines was somewhere around between 2 and 3 million. So well done to the Colorado Rapids and holding out for this deal. It can go up to 10.7, and they have a sell-on clause that they believe is going to be valuable as well because they believe he's continuing to develop and that this is a Premier League player, and it's just a matter of when he gets there.
And speaking of that, Mark McKenzie netted Philadelphia a little bit of money this year as well.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know for certain because the way that sell-on clauses can be broken down is either sell-on just in total or sell-on of the profit. And Genk sold McKenzie for less than they paid for him. So I haven't had anybody tell me that that's the case, but that's a possibility as well. So again, I think that they did, but I don't know with 100% certainty that it wasn't a sell-on on profit.
Okay. That would make sense and would suck as well for Philadelphia because it sounded like they made a little bit of money without doing anything. We already talked Julian Araujo, the money that he's bringing into that like Galaxy without them doing anything, which is always really nice as well. Let's close out on this one. Dax McCarty announcing his retirement. He will finish up with Atlanta United this year. He is an MLS legend across the league. He is one that is tied, I think, emotionally to multiple clubs, which on one hand you could say like, oh, that's very odd. But when you know Dax or when you are around the league at all, it makes sense. He gives his all to every team he's at. And for the most part, those teams then decide that they don't want him to be there anymore. And then he goes and he does the same thing with the next team. He was on FC Dallas's MLS Cup finalist team all the way back in 2010, got traded to DC, flipped to the Red Bulls. He was part of the Jesse Marsh resurgence or just emergence of the Red Bulls as a successful team. In that group, he was key to that. Then he got shipped to Chicago. He was in the Bastian Schweinsteiger team. That was the peak probably for Chicago over the last 10 years. And then again shipped out, sent to Nashville, which we thought might be an MLS backwater, and you never know. And I think he helped build a pretty cool identity for Nashville, and for them to have success out the gate. They have the largest soccer-specific stadium. None of this is a coincidence. He was a big part of all of those teams, and I think he's going to be hugely missed in MLS, and he should be celebrated as one of the great players all time on the field and off.
Yeah, you hit that perfectly. He's absolutely one of the best MLS careers of all time. It is criminal that Dax McCarty has not won MLS Cup. This is a case where this dude is a winner. Everything he does, he is a winner. The way that he operates, the way he carries himself, the way he is day in and day out. And it's a wild stat to me that he hasn't won MLS Cup. The fact that, again, those Red Bulls teams and that didn't, then he went to Chicago. He helped lead Chicago to the playoffs. It's like one of their 2 playoff appearances in the last dozen years. That should be a trophy in my book, man. Like, are you kidding me? Yeah. And then, as you said, with Nashville, you weren't sure how exactly it was going to go. Nashville was integral. McCarty was integral to what Nashville did on the field, just as importantly off the field. First captain, set the culture, all of that. All the good that came from Nashville in those 4 years, he was an absolute key part of it, him and several other players. So, like, this dude is just full stop a legend in this league. I'm worried that he's going to go full-time in the media now, and we're not going to have any work because he's also really good at that. MLS 360 might just become 2015 New York Red Bulls, right? Which I think that'd be fun with the chemistry of those guys. But, like, Like I could see, like I don't know what his career plans are. If this was a guy who wanted to get into coaching, I think he'd be excellent at that too, right? Like I have the utmost respect for this guy on and off the field. Dax McCarty is just an MLS legend, and like I don't know where he's at mentally right now, but like I'm glad that he announced this now so that he will get a proper goodbye. Right. I do hope to see several teams outside of Atlanta. Like I don't know what their schedule looks like over the stretch run here. I do hope that he's recognized by the teams that he plays in away games against.
I would have liked to have seen him retire with Nashville. I thought that was odd from the Nashville side of like that they couldn't get that deal done. My understanding was he was actually registered. There's a registration that you can have for 1 or 2 players a year where they are registered as coaches in your academy and they are like able to be on both of the salaries and all of that stuff. And my understanding is he was one of those. So he has already dabbled in coaching a little bit. He has a podcast. You should go listen to it. And he has talked, I think, about doing some commentary work off on the side. He's from Orlando originally, so it'll be interesting to see where he falls and where he lands. But as you said, every club he goes to has bumped up the moment he has gotten there. And I have no idea why every team he was at decided that they were ready to move on before he was. And the fact that he went to the next one and did the same thing is a testament to who he is.
You say that he's from the Orlando area. Poetic. The last game on the Atlanta United schedule at Orlando on decision day. So that's nice. He goes back to Harrison, New Jersey. They play the Red Bulls in New Jersey on September 21st. If there's anybody in decision-making positions for New York Red Bulls listening to this podcast, I really hope that there are going to be some special plans to honor a legend of both your club and this league.
The podcast is named Major League Journeyman. It's with Gordo and Dan Gargan as well. So you can go listen to that one if you want to. And I think with that, that's the end of our show. We are excited for the League
Any more predictions?
Semifinal. Any more predictions? Yeah, I will say I think Atlanta wins 2-1 against Red Bulls on that final game in a moment where I don't even know what's going to be going on in the league. I don't even know what's going to be happening. That's my hot take. You've been listening to Soccer Wise. Thank you all for being there. Thank you to all of you for listening. Subscribe, follow, do all the things. Go become a Patreon subscriber as well, and we'll talk to you